Hello, and welcome back to the Proving Culture sessions. In the first session, we explored the idea of workplace culture to create an image for assessors to look for when identifying workplace culture. If you recall, workplace culture is the invisible force of shared beliefs, norms, and behaviors that determine whether employees feel safe to speak up, take risks, and collaborate openly. In this second session, let's get to work in demonstrating real, tangible means for measuring and analyzing workplace culture using 3 audit trails. ISO 45003, briefly mentioned in the last session, maturity models, and ISO 10010, which I also mentioned briefly in the first session. Both ISO standards were briefly mentioned. Here we're going to go into more detail for finding and evaluating the effectiveness of workplace culture. The guidance standard for workplace psychosocial safety, ISO 45003, offers several identifiable attributes that indicate that for independent auditors to use to measure for an effective workplace culture. Any of these can be assessed by reviewing internal audits, employee survey results, and nonconformity findings, along with incident investigations and responses. As a basis, they can be used by auditors to identify the existence and maturity of workplace culture programming in any organization, a sort of barometer on the organization from a completely independent perspective. So what we're talking about here is looking for some of these items that you see on screen. They are among the many elements of ISO 45003. If you go to clause 6 of that guidance standard, there's lots of elements of how to identify or plan for or consider the risks of many different actions that go on. These are but a few of the ones that most directly align with the subject in this series, workplace culture. So these are elements, or if you're auditors, audit trails that you can explore. You should start to see some element or indication or evidence of these kinds of elements throughout your auditing experience. The collection of them point to the existence of a workplace culture. In the safety environment, there are several leading maturity models available that provide analytical approaches to assess the existence of workplace culture and any progression from a reactive state to a progressive state within any organization. In fact, one is called the safety barometer. More on that in a moment. The purpose of such an assessment is to refine the tools to apply to move from one end of the culture spectrum to another. There are different levels of opportunity available to organizations that develop and refine their workplace culture over time. These tools can help organizations monitor and analyze where they are. So too, the external auditors or interested parties could observe these measured milestones in culture. They include things like the DuPont-Bradley curve introduced in 1995. One not listed here, but well known is the HSE executive from the UK. The HSE Safety Culture Maturity Model came out in 2001. The Hudson Ladder, well-known model, came out in 2002. The Global Safety Index, introduced in 2013, And then the National Safety Council Safety Barometer, which was introduced in 2024. So there is a rich history of tools available and applied by organizations to evaluate workplace culture. It is not or should not be something very new to many organizations globally. The Safety Maturity Index, SMI, on the left-hand side of the graphic stands out from traditional safety models, safety maturity models, by emphasizing leading indicators and system-based assessments rather than relying on lagging metrics like incident rates. Here's how it compares to the other well-known models here. You can see that it aligns with, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, ISO 45001 and ANSI Z10 here in the US is another systems framework for workplace safety. So all of these models provide measures. We can see the comparison here of them side by side. They each have a particular focus, yet similar structures for measuring success, yet each has a unique but clear mechanism for verifying effectiveness. So as these are applied in an organization, you're encouraged to look for their existence, their application over time that have driven improvements in workplace culture that are observable in the here and now. Auditors should explore these models to be familiar with the approaches and tools applied that may be identified during any auditing activities. Again, it's not the intent here in these sessions to provide a deep understanding of how to pursue and develop and implement and succeed at workplace culture, but how do we see it? So in any of these models, some of the qualitative measures that we're looking for are over here on the left-hand side of my graphic: psychosocial safety and open dialogue, leadership as a catalyst for internalized safety values, storytelling and personal testimonials for personal connection to the culture journey, very important. And then finally, measuring effectiveness beyond traditional metrics, lagging indicators. So, we discover these quantitative factors here, starting to measure up. And one of those that we introduced quickly in the first session was ISO 10010, published in 2022 to provide guidance managing ISO 9001 quality management systems, to explore and nurture workplace culture. That same standard provides auditors with identifiable actions to evaluate effectiveness. So I'm drawing direct words right from the ISO 10010 standard. You can see 7 elements here. Certainly, these are things that we want to look for. I've highlighted some words that carry over from some of that dialogue on 45,003, some of the dialogue from the last session. What is it about a workforce that we want to see demonstrated quite effectively? Communication, their training, their engagement, having culture champions, having quality culture objectives. If you have objectives, you can pursue them, right? And if you pursue them, you need tools to do so. And that's where some of this information in this session, I hope, demonstrates to the auditor or any party what are some of those tools to demonstrate that. And then incentivizing, recognizing, and rewarding employees, perhaps having behavioral coaches, consultants to help us on that journey as we're figuring these things out. So, are you able to detect any of these 7 measures of workplace culture during your normal course of auditing? Do they contribute to the effective or perhaps strong performance of that organization? We often talk of the maturity of a management system when we see that it is clearly understood and embedded into how an organization goes about its work. More often, we observe maturity of the management system in place due to that workplace culture in the organization. So now the opportunity is to point out that distinction. In the next session, we will explore elements in current ISO standards that already call for the existence of workplace culture. No wonder we can already see this in organizations that have ISO certified management systems. To drive the recognized success of ISO systems, the standards themselves, ISO 9001 and 45001, are changing to incorporate more structure to support the existence and benefits of workplace culture. So in the next session, we'll look at some of the proposed language for those standards. I hope you'll join us in session 3 of Proving Culture, Workplace Culture in ISO Standards, Current and Emerging Requirements.